So I'm going to see how quickly I can give a shout out and a response video here to 144 Dusilian. I'm not really sure how to pronounce this person's channel. The person had posted this young man had posted a video called Concern, is a response to my video on concerns over YouTube, Google, and new media, and I really found his video to be quite interesting and some of the concerns he'd raised to be provoking, and I wanted to at least give some sort of response to the questions he had raised. I think the first thing that I would say is I didn't get email until I had become a professor. I had gotten all the way through college, undergraduate, and my graduate degrees, and I never had email. I knew that there were some people who did that. I had, I came here and they said, "Oh, you're gonna have to open up an email." And I remember saying, "Email." I remember making fun of it, going, "What is this? I don't trust it." If I had any idea then what email would have become for me over the next 10 to 12 years, I think I would have been really quite surprised. The same with Google search and just search engines. I did all of my undergraduate and even my graduate work before that stuff took off and before that had happened. So my notion of getting information was through study and through you become very familiar with bookstores and with you try to find really great bookstores and sections in bookstores, and you become very familiar with reading the reference sections of really key books. I mean, the task is to open key books and then to study those reference pages, which is a very different way of gathering and organizing information than hyperlinking around. I mean, one sort of has a node and then there's scattered relations from that node, and the key is to find those key critical or those thinkers who have been the great synthesizers, who have been able to integrate, pull together, I guess, the kinds of ideas and concepts and other folks that you're interested in. I think there are many other issues that are related to this. I have some colleagues here, just a little bit older than me. I think they're in their 50s, and they told me that they refrained from getting a microwave oven because they didn't like the increase of pace or the tempo that it introduces into life. And I thought that was very interesting. That notion that for some people, the microwave oven is a time scale that they don't want to jump into. I think, yeah, and I don't have a cell phone. I don't do texting. I don't do instant messaging, although I have been known to shoot an occasional instant message through Skype and or through Facebook, although I'm not on Facebook that often. I think the concerns that I have are first the day-by-day concerns and then the long-term concerns. First, the day-by-day. From my own orientation here, I think it's very important for a person to take their own, I guess you could say, their own day as a kind of mirror of the evolution and development of humanity. And so I think it's important for a person to get up and spend some quiet time alone, some thoughtful time, whether you're just thinking, doing whatever it is that you're doing in a focused way, maybe walking. If you have a dog, you want to take a dog for a walk. Then to do serious study, and a good amount of serious study, and then break into the electric media. I think the electric media have a tendency to re-scramble your sense of relevance, orientation, time lapse sensibilities, all these kinds of things where if I, just as an example, if I get up in the morning and I go right to an electric technology, it's almost like it's more difficult to then go and read for a while. But if I get up in the morning and I take the dog for a walk and then I go study for a couple of hours, I can have really focused, very focused study. And then after I've done my study, get online, and I find it's much easier. And I can't do it the other way around, though. You know, if I've been online and been doing a lot of stuff online, it's almost like I've just shot my ability to do serious book kind of study. And so I do have a tendency to try to do a lot of my academic or focused work in the morning, and then I'll what I call, sort of goof around here by watching even educational videos on YouTube, it doesn't seem to demand the same kind of concerted attention where I'm, highlighting and or I'm underlining and making notes and numbering and things like that in a text. I think the larger historical concern would be something similar to that. Well, I guess on that too, I would say people who get up and watch TV in the morning, like sometimes when I'm walking my dog, I'll see people who have like big screen TVs and they're up watching morning television. And I think, wow, the comparison is like that they're in some way they're up doing a serious drug first thing in the morning. They're shooting heroin or something. I don't know. It's really wild. To think of what that does to your sense of space, time, who you are, everything else. It's really wild to think of how that organizes your sensibilities on a daily basis. Yeah, the larger socio-historical issue is I'm not fearful. I'm concerned with what does look to be like a rise of idiocracy. If you haven't seen it, it's a great movie. There does seem to be a kind of idiocracy, and it's from a pandering to an immediate self, and it's what comes by this point-and-click orientation of the electric instantaneous communication technologies. Maybe the concern is that there are people who are highly literate, who are deeply entrenched in book culture, and they're making sure their children are getting that same education. And then there's growing masses of people who are getting seas of information, some of which is really, really cutting edge and overthrows millennia of misinformation. And it's important for people to have access to good information. I mean, I think the way that a lot of the religious dogma is being dispelled by contemporary science is a great example of that. But there's still an overabundance of commercializing information, of misinformation, of things that are just being thrown out there to muddy the waters, to keep people from getting access. And see, the problem in the information overload is not only do people become more and more bored, and there's a wonderful book on this called Overload and Boredom by Orrin E. Clapp, but what happens is that you move into what Richard Lanham calls it's an attention economy, where the scarce resource is people's attention rather than information. So once the field of available information is now glutted, and everyone has to weed through all the information that's being uploaded on a constant basis, it becomes more and more difficult to find what could be called relevant, useful, and usable information. Increasingly, I think people spend more and more time trying to disambiguate and find the information that they're interested in, and then they just give it a surface cursory glance because they're too busy trying to catch up with the latest information. It's funny, I have an RRS feed or something like this on my computer, and I can click on it and it gives me the headlines from about 50 to 60 different newspapers, and it really is interesting, all of the different sort of stories of the day that are competing for your attention, and you can't pay attention to all of it. Some of this really starts to throw in, I think, onto me, or I guess it throws into the discussion, what exactly is a person? Is a person something that is just in space and time, like a kind of object that will be sated by having its needs met? Are we mythical, heroic beings who need adventure and who need more than, I guess, being entertained? I think we seem to be in a culture where we're losing the ability to differentiate cultivated character and self-development through study and being somewhat knowledgeable because you've been entertained a lot by information that now isn't from the Middle Ages and or from earlier periods where it was just all mythical. I think there is a kind of growing common sense realism. It's hard to deny, and there is a great information revolution that's infecting common sense. the divide between the haves and the have-nots is rapidly going to accelerate, and the really wealthy are going to become more and more wealthy, and there's going to be rises of people who are poor and who don't have the resources. And one of the things that's going to separate those who are able to make the leap from their conditions of hardship into something like an escape from that, from my best guess, it's going to be those people who are with their feet fully in literacy and literate culture, book culture. They may need the web today. I think we want to say that it's there. But it's not people running around playing video games, being distracted. It's people who first know what they want to be, who they need to be when they grow up. They see it as a mission to cultivate themselves, and now they're first planting their feet into the rich analytic traditions, this historical depth and density of book culture, and then they're trying to update themselves with the latest sea of information that's pouring in through the electric connections. Okay, thanks for the video, and okay, have a good one. Bye-bye.